Welcome to Synced On Air. I'm your host, Angelique Robb, and I have my co-host, Mike Watts, with me today. Welcome, Mike. And our guest is Mark Bradley. Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sure. Well, we're excited to learn what's going on in your world because you have a lot going on. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Mark is now with Leanscaper, and we are happy to have you on the podcast. Maybe we should start with a little bit of your history. And there's a lot there to unpack, so we don't need to. We want to save some time for Leanscaper and Sync Live too. So why don't you start us off with a little bit of a summary?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll give you the very fast version of 30 years in
Yeah, I
the industry.
know.
um, yeah, I mean, I think just like many people in the landscape industry, I got started in high school, just doing some work with another landscape company, and kind of quickly just fell in love with the industry. I think I loved doing the work, being outside, growing up in the countryside, working on the farm, working with my mom in our own gardens. I think it just became an addiction. And I think like everybody in the early years, it was a good way to make money, and then over time, the challenge of learning the trade and learning the business is really what I kind of fell in love with. But shortly after high school, I went into a nuclear program to be to work in the nuclear industry, and so I was an apprentice steam fitter. And after completing that apprenticeship, I kind of quickly shifted into project management, and I stayed with nuclear for a short period of time, but really almost immediately felt the draw back to the landscape industry. I wanted to be self-employed, wanted to work outdoors, just kind of everything that doesn't come with being in the nuclear industry.
So you knew that you wanted to be self-employed. That's interesting. Okay. And so that's early 20s, I guess, is it?
Yeah, I think just from doing my own thing in high school, and really enjoying getting out and doing a job for somebody, seeing them happy when the job was finished, getting paid. It just kind of sparked that entrepreneurial spirit. I think it was hard to replace. The money was great in my nuclear role. It was hard to walk away from. It was secure, all the usual story, but it just didn't really seem to resonate with me. I just couldn't really find my groove working in that environment. So anyway, that was really what caused me to go out on my own. So at 23, started a landscape business, literally with a pickup truck and a wheelbarrow. I think oftentimes we hear about that, but that was truthfully it. I had a little tiny apartment in downtown Toronto, and I had a front porch. I was just on the main floor of a house, and I had a little front porch, and under that was a 4 foot crawl space, that was my front. That was my first shop, I always say.
Did, did you start solo, or did you have any help at the very beginning?
Yeah, I started with what would become my wife, and we just started out just doing small jobs, just residential maintenance, same as anybody. Our first year, the business did grow really quickly. I always say that I think it takes maybe 10,000 hour rule kicks in most areas of life, but for me, I was really fortunate growing up the way I did. My father was a tradesman, and he was always just teaching me to be a tradesman. And so by 23, I had built houses, I had done plumbing, I had done a lot of landscaping. My apprenticeship in nuclear was all welding and pipe fitting and steel work. So I was pretty well rounded tradesman at 23. I would say I had the 10,000 hours in. And I think that really set me up for this crazy first year. My first year in business, I did $1 million in project work. And so the business very quickly outgrew me. There was a big demand for the work. I was great at doing the work, but not great at running a business. And so very quickly realized that hiring people, motivating people, explaining how to do the work, as well as I kind of just knew how to do it at that age. And then, of course, all of the things that come with running a small business it was a tough realization. The work was almost the easy part for me. Um,
Yeah.
which and I did love the hard work. I was a hockey player, so I was used to 5 or 6 days a week of intense exercise, and the work almost was like a gift to me to have to work that hard. It was like that was my way of taxing myself, and I was
Mm.
so addicted to the hard work that I think I just fell in love with that. So yeah, the first few years, the business did grow fast, but really bumpy. Trying to figure out pricing, trying to figure out budgeting, all of the proper accounting practices, proper hiring practices, dealing with the government, all the things that I think most landscapers hate. I truthfully was horrible at, and I often try to remind people of that when I'm out teaching workshops and showing others how to budget and estimate and manage a metric based team and attract people. All of these things came, very unnaturally to me. I think the same as they did to many others in the industry. So
Yeah.
as the business grew, I kept, breaking everything that I would fix. It just, the systems that I would create were quickly outgrown and
Hmm.
very, very much feel like I hit every bump in the road growing at the pace that I did. I guess 5 years into the business, we were just in around that sort of $5 million range. So the business had grown well, but and it was oddly profitable because of the type of work we were doing. And I think we were very efficient, but there was still a lot of business processes missing. It was really just hard work every day. I think that really paid the bills. In around that time, I started to really think about scaling the business more in a way where others could be doing what I was doing in a more repeatable way. I sort of really started to read more. I was thinking a lot more about long term planning for the business. Started to think about having kids around that age group. That probably started to shift my mindset a little bit about working 6 or 7 days a week the way I
Right.
was. And so I really started to focus on operating with more of a metric based approach. I started to really refine the production rates, really started to refine the way that I was estimating. And I started to really use a system to run the business for the first time. And I think really between year 5 and 8, I really, really doubled down on systemization and really trying to show everybody else in the company what good looked like and teach them what I had learned in the first few years about running the business. Like, how do we actually make money? What does estimated versus actual hours look like on a day to day basis for the work? What are our production rates? Really teaching everybody in the company how to actually win. And so that to me felt like, drawing back to my hockey years, it was all about finding a way to teach everybody else how to win the game and then creating a plan before we would start to work to make sure that everybody understand what the plan was. And so kind of just drawing from my sports years, I think I really started to feel like I wanted a team around me that just really truly understood what we were there to do and how we were going to do it, just the same as I was. And so that's really what I focused on. And what then happened afterward was still to this day mind blowing. We went from 5 million to 50 million in 15 years, and
Wow.
we were, I don't know, 65th on the top 100. We had the highest revenue per hour on the top 100,
Wow.
highest revenue per employee that we could see in the industry. And it really was just a byproduct, I think, of the way that we had really recreated almost miniature businesses within the business, in the sense that every crew understood their labor, material, and equipment. Everybody understood their estimated
Hmm.
hours. They kind of knew how the business would win or lose. And then we'd really just put metrics in front of everybody that made sense. And for us, we just found that estimated versus actual hours was a very simple way to explain the truth. Here's what we told the customer we'd be out doing, and here's the budget for you to go do the job. Provided you get it done on time and the customer's happy, we're all winning. And so we kind of kept it very simple in the day-to-day dialogue, but we always referred back to production rates and estimated versus actual.
Hmm.
And the business just continued to scale and grow throughout that period. So midstream in there, I decided to build software. As I was trying to eliminate the waste in the business,
Yeah.
I decided I really needed a way of collecting data. Just how am I going to collect all of this data and share it with the staff in real time without that being a million conversations? And really, that was the sort
Cumbersome.
of beginning
Yeah.
of LMN. That was
Okay.
2007. So we were, it had been in business for 10 years when we decided to start building software.
Well, it's that was a winning thing to do. So good job with that. Good job doing that.
Yeah, it was just another thing that we did out of a need to grow our own business, truthfully.
Yeah.
And that at the time we expected devices to come to market, but you got to remember we were building mobile software in 2007. There was no app stores in
Yeah.
2007. So what we were building was before the devices were out. We just happened to need it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
right place, right time when the app stores really hit and things took off. We put the first mobile apps in there for the landscape industry, and the business took off
Oh,
pretty
that's
much
great.
overnight. Um,
That's incredible.
so yeah, I ran
Well, and
LMN for from 2009 when we started selling software, just until 2 months ago when we did the sale. Um, and that
and
was my big move into Leanscaper, the next big
okay,
thing.
let's do a drum roll.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean,
And
Leanscaper, I really see it as just like it's kind of my 4.0. I'm saying it's like 1.0 was my apprenticeship, 2.0 was my landscape business, 3.0 LMN. This is just 4.0. It's really an extension of my career, and the way I kind of look at it is when I think as humans and you know a species, I think what we're here to do is help each other get better. I think we're very social animals, and what we tend to do is help one another in our day to day. And I think that is the purpose and I think that's God's purpose. And I just think that when we've learned how to overcome obstacles, the best thing we can do for humanity and for ourselves is to share how we did that. And I think that's
totally
why
agree.
we're where we are as a species. And so day to day, I mean, over the past 7, 8 years since I retired from landscaping, I really just made it my job to help landscapers in one way, shape, or another, whether I was building software or educating or just, hopping on and helping somebody who was really up against the wall or in a jam. And, when you've got 3,500 paying customers and another 6,000 other active, there's a lot of people to help day to day. There's just always something. And so what I found, my DMs, my email would just be constantly blowing up with people looking for advice. And after 20 years of flying from city to city, some years I used to do 75, 80 cities a year, and I would do budget workshops with 20 to 30 companies at a time. So you get to know thousands and thousands of companies. So when they're reaching out, you actually really feel obligated to help. And so what I started doing, though, I would say over the past 7 or 8 years is working with more and more industry consultants, more and more advisors, a lot more referrals so that we can just kind of help people find the right resources. And so that worked to some extent. But what I did find is, whether people are taking advice from different consultants or joining different peer groups or reading books or maybe even seeking advice from their local professionals, it's hard for people to often connect everything together because they don't necessarily have a
Yeah.
common language. And so what I found the big gap to be in the industry was that is like there isn't really a management operating system or like a way of running a landscaping business that is somewhat universal. And so people buy software, and that could be LMN or Aspire or, others. There's lots of great software in the industry. And I've always said the best software is just the software that you actually use.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah,
but the truth
fully. Yeah,
is like, I think what a lot of people thought when they were buying software is they were buying a management operating system, which is not the case. I mean, software provides a system of
it's a
record. It
tool.
collects data. With LMN, we built it to predict your year. There's budgeting that predicts the year. Then that translates pricing methodology into estimating so that your pricing work to recover your overhead. And then it allows you to collect the data day to day when the crews are out doing the work so that you've got accurate job costing. So you get better at pricing in the
Which is
future. But
a
it's
big thing in itself,
it's a
that.
major problem that need to be fixed. And
Yeah.
and so I really do believe that problem is solved by software today. What I've noticed, in running a software company and seeing all of the other problems so clearly is most people don't really have a great accounting system. They don't
Okay.
really, and much the same, people buy accounting software and think that that's their accounting system, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
another piece of software. And so your systems that surround your software, whether it's field service management software like LMN or your accounting software, they rely on you having like a way of running your business, and that's a management operating system. And some people use um, systems like EOS. You've probably heard of that. And some
Yes.
people use different methods that their accountants teach them and whatnot. But generally, what I've noticed is most people don't have good accounting process, and they don't really use a management operating process where they set goals, they have metrics, they have
Yes.
reports, they have meetings. And so what tends to happen is when they start using the software like LMN or QuickBooks or any software, they tend not to really use the software with great business practices. And so I think a lot of the problems people face are often just, where do I get these resources? How do I learn how to do this? How should I learn how to set strategy and goals? And how do I run a metric based company? Like, what does that even mean? And I think as an industry, we talk about it more than we actually show people how to do it. That's
So, do you
definitely
mean Leanscaper is teaching people how to do that and showing people how to do that? Because that's a
yeah.
big
So
task.
it is. I try to solve hard problems. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. Um, and honestly, often like when I did sell LMN, and everybody said to me, "Are you crazy? You want to keep working?" Um, but yeah, it's true. It's truly the hard stuff that gets me excited. And yeah, you're right. This is a really difficult thing to solve. And what I noticed with budgeting, estimating, crew tracking, automated billing, automated payments, all the things that we created with LMN was they were all hard problems to solve, but technology actually makes these problems fairly simple to go away. And so what we decided to really focus on with Leanscaper is really solving the organizational problems that people have. And the big reason why my company had such high revenue per hour and that massive growth was really because of lean. Going lean and really learning how to eliminate waste, identify it, systemize the waste elimination, and really get the entire company moving in the same direction and really speaking the same language and really understanding how waste is actually removing the opportunity for higher wages and the opportunity for profits and investment funds to go back into the business to keep growing. Once we were able to kind of share that with people, when they started to understand that waste was probably the biggest villain in the business, and if we could find a way to eliminate it, that we'd all do better. That was probably one of the biggest things that really changed the culture and I think the trajectory of the business. We were paying our staff minimum wage was 3 times what minimum wage was in our city.
Wow.
And that's not a normal outcome.
That's not a normal
Yeah.
in our
Um,
industry. I know, and I think that yeah, that
that
says a
was
lot
that
in
was the thing
itself.
I was most proud of. Honestly, the
Yeah,
scale of the business, that didn't mean anything to me. It was really just the fact that minimum wage was 3 times what it was everywhere else. That meant that we were super efficient, we were well run, we had the best customers, we had the most skilled employees, and it was then
happy
easy
employees
to
and
exactly
content.
very happy. Everybody's
Yeah,
happy when they can afford to buy a house and a car. And, I really believe that if you work full time, you should be able to buy a house and a car. Those are sort of
yeah,
the basics in life. And I think, unfortunately, throughout the industry, that's still not the case. And so, what I'm doing with Leanscaper is trying to help people understand how to go lean, how to use a management operating system that builds a strategic plan for the business and then sets goals that are cascaded throughout the whole company. So everybody from the owner to the brand new apprentice that just got hired understands exactly what their key metric is and what winning looks like. And they know how to play the game, just as I was kind of comparing earlier. And when everybody knows how to play the game, it's more fun because then you can talk about how to get better at playing the game. And so
yeah.
that's what lean is all about. It's just a set of principles that are used in the business to really like explain how we're going to get better. It's like a um, new language for most businesses, but it's a very easy language to learn.
Do you
Is it
find
like?
yourself
Oh, sorry.
sorry?
Go ahead, Mike.
Do you find yourself encountering new problems as opposed to your early days? Like, do you feel like you're always surprised with new issues that are arising in the industry?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. Like I think the stuff that we talk about these days is definitely different than it was 15, 20 years ago. I think we're
Yeah.
talking about automation and we're talking about
Mm,
technology and we're talking about software, but at the core, what I feel like we generally talk about are the same problems. And I think that was really one of the big reasons why I wanted to start Leanscaper is I wanted to combine a community, which we're trying to build a large free community for people to just go and grab frameworks, templates, documents, advice, all the things that you need to run a
to
landscape
run it.
company more
Yeah,
professionally. Whether you're trying to hire people, you're trying to retain people, you're trying to develop people, you're trying to get better customers, maybe you're trying to go out and build a sales process, or you're trying to create a hiring program, or maybe it's a marketing plan. Well, the idea of Leanscaper is inside of the free community, there's lots of free resources for you just to download frameworks and standard operating procedures and spreadsheets and training aids to teach your staff how to do things. Anything that you would probably feel day to day like you're missing, we want to put that in one
mm,
free location so that there's just a big giant well of resources that you can go and grab, and they're well put together. They're turnkey systems that the industry can have for free.
Yeah.
And I've built all of that for my own business, and I know how painful it is to build and how expensive it is to build. Um, and that stuff really slows you down. And so the idea of just
it
giving that
does.
back to the industry is really exciting to me because the industry has given me more than I could ever imagine. The thousands of customers that I had and all of the people that supported LMN over the years really changed my life. I feel like I learned from the industry, and so just to give back everything that I learned just seems like the right thing to do. And particularly at this point in my career, when I don't plan to run a landscape business ever again, I got every single dime that I have from this industry. It just seems like the right thing to just hand it back and say, hey, here's what I learned. Hope you can take it and make it better and do something bigger with it than I did. And so that's truthfully what the community is all about.
I love that. And we
Yeah.
want to help however we can too. So
Yeah. Thank
yeah,
you.
like please, yeah, yeah. we can talk about that offline, but
Yeah.
we want to be involved. And again, that's, what I launched in the form of Synced is what I had access to in the UK as a business owner. And we have a really complicated industry, you know,
Yeah,
and
for
and
sure.
we have Mother Nature, trying to stop us every chance we get, or we're having to work with Mother Nature too, and with living things and you know, hardscaping, concrete structures. We have a lot to a understand, and I'm just thinking from a technical point of view in the design, construction, maintenance. And then obviously there's the whole business side of things that, most of the business owners did not come into this industry to run a business. They came because they love what they're doing, just like you did. Love to work outside, love to work hard, like the satisfaction of seeing what they've created. Um, so, that's our same reasoning, and to connect the the different disciplines that don't regularly talk to each other. So
Yeah. Oh,
I
it's
feel a huge alignment with you on that, and so glad that, another drum roll, that you're going to be at Sync Live next month in Atlanta. And so yeah, looking forward to hearing. You're going to have a panel discussion and a talk on your own. And do you want to give us a little bit more information about your individual talk, and then what you envision for the panel?
all right. I might have to rely on you for the
Oh
panel, to be
yeah. Okay.
honest.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm super super excited to be joining for sure. I've heard nothing but incredible things about the event. I haven't been yet, so there's always been a conflict with some of our own events. But
LMN, yeah.
yeah,
This year
uh,
too, or
yeah, well, we planned it this year, right? We got it right. We got
yeah.
one day squeezed in there in between things. So yeah, I'm very excited to be coming, and thank you for having me on stage as well. It's always great to share my experience with others. Yeah, people, revenue, and me is essentially what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about evolving as a leader, and I talk about that a lot because throughout my career, I really, truly, I would say the thing I'm most thankful for is what it really gave me as a person. Learning how to work with others, learning how to attract customers and great employees, and learning how to run a business. It sounds daunting, and it is, but the truth is it just made me better as a person. It forced me to continuously improve throughout my entire career, and it continues to this day. It's just like, people said when I retired from LMN, "Hey, why would you not fully retire? Like, you're going to continue working?" And I said, "Well, of course. I mean, my work is my passion, and I get up every day and do hard things for a reason. It feels good
Mhm.
when you see those things come to fruition." And I think helping others in one way, shape, or another is a great way to do that, because the more that you're motivated to help others, the more you actually end up evolving yourself
Yeah.
and improving yourself so that you can help others. And I think that is one big thing that I like to kind of explain, is this concept of evolving as a leader, what that looks like, and how I evolved, and where I found the most personal improvement, and some of the things that I did to grow in business, and the type of mentors that I really would seek out, how I would find mentors, peer group learning. I like to really share as much as I can on what that journey looks like. And so definitely plan to talk about my evolution of it as a leader, but then, really describe what I learned throughout my career about growing people, first off, attracting great people, but growing people, and really the simple fact that your people are your business. And I
Mm,
really like to explain that your your true leading indicator for success is the people that you surround yourself with. And then how you focus on developing those people, their skills, whether they're frontline tradespeople or whether they're management people or salespeople, their skills really dictate the future of the business and really
yeah,
dictate the success or failure. And so I think as I evolved as a leader, what I very quickly realized is having the right people and then combining that with good systems and really having a great strategy is the secret. And I think as I kind of explain people and revenue growth combined with my evolution as a leader, people kind of understand that they all go together. You can't
Mm-hmm.
expect, like, anytime there's a problem in your business, it's generally a reflection of your leadership, which is a really
mm,
hard thing to do, and be that self aware while you're also under the stress of growing the business. So I try to explain some of my big mistakes and, just kind of
good.
explain and normalize how big those mistakes are when I speak. And
Well,
I try to just be honest.
Yeah.
owner operator businesses are a challenge, and I think
For sure.
that you learn more from your mistakes. And I don't think we talk about mistakes enough in our industry. I think, there's more room for that, because if you're not making mistakes, you aren't really growing. So, or growing as full as you can, or as different as you need to be. So, no, I love that you're going that route and sharing. And what do you? I mean, some businesses go, "Oh, I don't want to be in the same room as my competition. I don't want to tell my secrets to my competition." What's your what do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember even facing that in my own business. I was always very active in my local trade association, Landscape Ontario, which is a incredible trade association, super well run, huge membership, fantastic trade show. Definitely one of the strongest educational systems there is. They've had
I've heard
huge
that.
success with getting government apprenticeships in place and whatnot. So really strong association. But I definitely felt that even there. And sometimes, what I've said to people is get involved in your associations, but also get involved in international associations. Go to um, conferences that are outside of your region. Join peer groups. They're typically put together with many
With that
people
in
from
thought.
across the country,
Yeah.
and really just try to get outside of your own geo and really network with people from other places, because I think there's a lot to learn when you do that, aside from just maybe the competitive hiding that you're referring to. But
Mm-hmm.
generally, what I always try to do when I start a mastermind session or even just a short talk at a show, I try to tell everybody that I'm here to learn, and I've learned more every time I've been speaking or teaching from the audience than I've probably given them. And so when everybody speaks and everybody gets involved in the conversation, there's just so many more patterns entering the room that you learn a lot more. And so the more you listen in the room, I think the more you learn. And that does require getting involved in peer-to-peer discussions. And so I always try to tell people, if you're going to go to a trade show, maybe it's worth going alone, or if you do go with a group, split up and, like,
Yeah.
make it your job to get to know other people, go to the breakfast round tables, go and find somebody to have lunch with, like,
Get out of
actually
your comfort
network.
zone and
um,
Yeah.
network.
that's what,
Challenge
like,
yourself.
trade shows aren't just to look at the shiny equipment. You gotta network if you want to get the best result, for sure.
This is so true. Yeah, I think that it's not comfortable, because I've attended trade shows by myself. It's not as comfortable, but those are the times that I've met more people,
For
that
sure.
yeah, that I never, because you're Yeah, making conversations with strangers, but then they aren't strangers for long. So,
No, no,
yeah.
it's incredible. One thing I we do a lot of 2 day mastermind sessions, and what I always find most amazing, like usually 100, 125 people at a time. So good size group, but not too big. And so what tends to happen, I start out every morning asking for 3 wins, 3 things that are working in the business now that weren't in the past, and 3 things that they want in the coming year or just in the future. And I think when you go around the room and you get everybody talking about the wins working and the wants, they tend to realize how similar they are. And oftentimes, what I notice on the breaks thereafter, like at 10, 12, 2 afternoon, as we kind of go through a full day, you can see the networking effect growing
Oh,
and growing and growing throughout the day, like the more time people have together. But what I've really come to learn is when you just expose those 3 things off the start, you raise the vibe in the room because there's a lot more gratitude, I think, in the room when we talk about our wins. And I
yes.
think it's almost motivational to talk about what's working and what you want more of. But what I notice is everybody comes together because, out of a giant room like that, there's only a few themes. Most people are looking
Yeah.
for somewhat the same things, and it always involves people. And
Yeah.
I think there's this thing that is highly, misunderstood and maybe not talked about enough in business is that ultimately we're just humans. And whether you own the
Yeah.
business or work in the business, we all seek the same thing, and that's love and
Yeah.
connection. And you get love and connection at work or you don't. And when you do get it at work, then your work really doesn't feel like work anymore. It's just part of your life. And because that is the one thing that we all seek. And I think when you create a company where where the purpose is very clear, where the people that you help is laser clear to everybody in the company, where everyone in the company has an I help statement. They understand who they help each day when they go to work, and then they understand how the game's played, how to win, how they're doing. They've got real time metrics. They don't need somebody to give them a pat on the back to know when they're having a good day. They can see
Mm-hmm.
it. And I think when you create that kind of a company, what ends up happening is people naturally feel that love and connection throughout their workday. And you don't have to necessarily be a cheerleader every day, all day. That's not reality. And we all know that. But that the culture that you create, I always say the culture that you create is the way it is. And so when you want to define culture, it's just the way it is in your company. And you can't make that up. The way it is, it's either really good or it's not. And like that's culture. And so if culture is the way it is, then you got to say as the leader, well, the culture is the way I made it. And I think that's really what I learned throughout my entire career is just how to create a culture where other people can find love and connection, feel success, and develop and find more success into the future. Because I think happiness or fulfillment really does come from just seeing some incremental improvement and being surrounded by people that you can feel love and connection with. And so I really, what I try to teach is just how to build a company that gets there.
Yeah. I really respect your humble and selfless approach to it, and you really strike me as a captain of a hockey team. Were you the captain?
I was.
No shock there. But truly, I mean, it's special to hear a leader speak the way you do about not just your business but the employees, because it's very Richard Branson approach to treat your employees well, and your business will thrive because of that. And I have
Yeah.
great respect for that.
Treat them
Well,
so well that they'll never leave. That's one of his
Yeah.
famous quotes.
yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's true.
And you know, the Lawn and Landscape just had their report out about what's on people's minds, what's the biggest issue in the industry, and that's workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I want to challenge that in our industry. I think that if we do what you're saying, then we we probably don't. If we innovate, if we use the tools, if we, treat people, we have a great culture. Do you think we'd have a workforce issue as an industry, or do you think,
I've said this many times, and
oh,
I think I have to start saying it more often. We don't have a workforce problem
I
in the
don't think
industry.
we
We have a
do.
leadership issue
Yeah.
in the industry. We have a whole, um, well, actually, 80% of people who have jobs in North America work for small businesses.
Yep.
And we don't really have a way of running small businesses.
No.
We everybody runs them differently, and in the landscaping business, unfortunately, we're generally, people like me, technicians that started businesses, and those businesses get to be very big, and there's lots of people who rely on those businesses to feed their families. And I
Yeah.
think as an industry, we have to really focus on two things. First, developing better leaders within the
Yes.
industry, and I don't just mean business owners. I mean at all levels.
At all levels.
And
Yes.
and then we have to be able to also create better tradespeople, which means we do have to use apprenticeships. Like every other
Yeah.
trade
Has
uses an
apprenticeship.
apprentice
Yeah.
from day one to 5 years to develop people, and then they have a recognizable workforce. And
Yes.
in our industry, for whatever reason, we've missed that step. And I think it's
Yeah.
time to catch that step. That my last 3 years at Greenius with LMN, when I purchased Greenius, it was exclusively for that. I just wanted to create an apprenticeship system that was completely baked into software, because I clearly recognized that there wasn't anything available universally. And so the two big things that I'm kind of working on now with Leanscaper are really designed to help managers become better leaders, to help owners become better leaders, and then to kind of systemize the day of a worker in a way where there's less demand on the managers. Because I do feel for the owners and managers. Their business is very difficult because there's so many workflows. And you talked about it earlier. There's the weather, there's the customer, there's the supplier, there's the engineer and the architect, and there's a lot of stakeholders to keep busy on a typical day.
Yes.
And then we're trying
Hmm.
to keep our crews moving smoothly around all of that chaos. And so
Yes.
the software that I'm building now, the next iteration of Leanscaper, I didn't really finish earlier. I kind of went back and
Oh,
forth, but that what we're building is essentially a free community, a massive team of advisors to help landscapers solve the major problems in their business, whether it be financial, sales and marketing, operational efficiency, human resources development. We've got monthly programs with advisors. So it kind of comes with the tools and the people to
hmm.
help you optimize those four areas of your business. And then what we're dropping mid year will be really powerful software that helps you manage and motivate your workforce and automate their workday. And so AI powered workflow management that really enables the frontline staff to manage their own labor, material, equipment, information, anything that they would typically go to an ops manager for advice on would be fully automated. And so this is, voice driven in the future, where we have wearable glasses, watches, or a
Hmm.
phone. And when you have a need, rather than sending a text, an email, a phone call, it's either push button or speak to the device, and it triggers an automated workflow that would either produce a material order or cause a system to be triggered, like I
Hmm.
need a day off work, or I need uniforms, or I need
Mm-hmm.
new safety glasses, or we need our subcontractor here next week on Wednesday. Whatever the need is that the crew typically might have, um, they can trigger that and therefore have that um, result that they're looking for without talking to another human. And so that's a major component of
Or
what we're
10
building.
other humans.
That's amazing.
Which
Yeah.
is
We rely on dashboards and triggers as opposed to all these conversations. And what we can do in most cases, eliminate 5 or 6 conversations, and therefore,
be
increase
efficient.
the pace of production. And so I did run my own landscape company with this product. We built it and we used it. We just didn't ever sell it. And so we're upgrading it right now and putting a lot of AI around it,
Ooh,
and turning it into a product that I think will become a very, very much needed tool for the rest of the industry.
That's awesome. You trying to get rid of us ops managers? Is that what's on here?
No, just trying to make life easier for the ops manager.
exactly.
Yeah, much
Eliminating
easier.
waste.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
I love
idea
it.
is really to turn all of the frustrations that an ops manager would deal with in the day, and just kind of automate all those things, so you don't have all of the weird, annoying little things happening throughout the day that take up the whole day. Instead, those
Yeah,
things are all automated, and then you're actually solving really meaningful issues that you never really get around to, that are actually the most valuable things to be doing with your time. And so
yeah.
really what we're trying to do is eliminate the mundane stuff so that you've got more time to focus on the big picture.
Very good, sure. Yeah, I
Love
love it.
that. I love it. Yeah. Mark, this has been fantastic. Thank you for being on our podcast. We are so excited to have you at our next event, and that's Sync Live in Atlanta, January 14th through 16th. Can you also tell our audience how to get in touch with you for Leanscaper information?
Yeah, easy. Just leanscaper.com, or you can always hit me up on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm easy to find on those channels as well. So leanscaper.com is definitely the easiest way to sign up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was fantastic. And it sounds like we've run out of time, so we need to have you on again.
Absolutely. Sounds good. All right.
It's been a real
Okay.
pleasure,
Thank you.
Mark. Thank you.
Okay. So we just have to let it download before we hang up. I should have
Yeah.
said that earlier.
Yeah, no problem.